All right, in today's video, we are going to react to the Matteo Mancuso interview, which I'm pretty excited about because this guy is an absolute monster of a guitarist and his style is so unique and just an incredible musician. I have too many good things to say about him, but let's jump in and see what we can see.
Now, the thing that I noticed that I was blown away by is the way that you play with your fingers on your right hand.
Exactly.
I want to talk about your technique.
First of all, I started playing like that because I was always seeing my father playing classical guitar back then. I started when I was around.
Because classical guitar is the best, baby. No, just kidding. Classical guitar is great. I love all styles of music. Me being a classical guitarist, I guess you could say I may be a little biased, but I don't know. No, I mean I've heard teachers also say like if you start with classical, with no matter what the instrument is, if you start with classical, you can pretty much play any other style with ease if you choose to go in another direction. And I think that's partially just because classical focuses a lot on technique. It's not everything, of course. You got to have musicality and all that other good stuff, but technique is important. It's something that classical focuses a lot on, which is why you have so many incredible classical musicians out there that are, honestly, in my opinion, very underrated. But this guy is a cool example of someone who started with classical and then crossed over to the other side, and it's amazing.
I started playing basically like that.
It's so even and so smooth. That's, I think, my favorite thing about this guy is the fluidity and the evenness in his playing. You have a lot of people who can play fast, but it's not necessarily like perfectly even. Not that that's everything, but there's something special about this guy when it comes to the evenness and fluidity with which he plays with.
Thing I noticed when I first started was the tone was so much different.
Yeah.
Like I was hearing on the records this strong attack and
Right. The pick attack.
The pick attack, yeah. And I realized that in order to achieve that kind of sound with fingers, you need to have nails. Yeah. So that it's a kind of
gotta do it.
So I think that is way more comfortable to me is to have like very short nails on my right hand. So they get on the string in an easier way, I think.
That is true. The longer your nail is, the longer it rides across the string before you can actually pluck the note or stroke the note. So the shorter your nails are, technically, the faster that you can play. So some people, it's a personal preference thing, but some people like really long nails, some people like shorter nails. It kind of depends.
So I started to playing, this kind of lines. This kind of 2 note per string pentatonic.
It's so silky, I love it.
How did you do the tremolo, Van Halen tremolo interruption with your fingers?
I think it's kind of...
I just noticed, and that last line he raked with his eye finger. Some people do that in classical guitar, like they'll repeat the same finger when they string cross, which is sometimes really helpful. But other people are like kind of against that, and they like you should always alternate between. But sometimes it's easier because it's always easier to string cross, to descend the string with eye because the eye finger is shorter than your middle finger, so it's easier to go backwards with that than the long finger because it's a little awkward. But yeah, he raked. But tremolo. Classic classical guitar technique right there. But how he does it is different. How he does it is different because I think most people when they play tremolo, their fingers are bent, and he kind of keeps them straight like this, right? It's different.
3 fingers to do this, right? Or 2 fingers?
Yeah, it is actually 3 fingers.
You do 3, okay.
And it is always ring, medium, and index.
Yes.
Right? AMI, classic.
So
in that order, you're saying?
In that order, always. Yeah. And it is called, it's kind of a tremolo. It's similar
like classical...
But he's not using P. Usually when we have a bass line, it goes P, AMI, P, AMI. But he's just going AMI, AMI.
Tremolo.
Because it's a triplet.
Yeah. But the position is actually more similar to the bass players.
Yes.
Right.
So, it's always on this order. And if you...
So see, his right hand is different. I'm gonna try that. So usually your hand's kind of curved like this, but he's like this, where I feel like he's a little more, I don't know, coming out from this angle, and his fingers are like more extended, if that makes sense. This is not good for the angle that I have with my fingernails. Doesn't really work. with the angle that he plays. It's so even though, I love that.
As your hand moves up on the guitar to the low E string, there's nothing to anchor your hand. How do you play accurately? You were just playing on the low E string. Is your thumb touching the top of the pickup, or is it just free floating?
Yeah, that's when this thing coming out.
Okay, I was going to ask about that, yeah.
Yeah, this is basically in order to hold my thumb the way I do.
Yes.
So,
That's honestly super smart. I know some classical players, when they have to play on the lower strings, will rest their thumb on the guitar. So like this, if I had to play something on the 6th string, I don't always do this, but sometimes when you go to the 6th string, they rest their thumb here. Right? But his is cool that he actually added like a little piece of wood to rest his thumb at, so the position is always the same, because that's something that's super important when you're trying to play with your finger or with anything. When you move positions, right, you don't want this position to feel different than this position and move your hand. You want it to be in the same, so that you pretty much just move the fingers, right? So that's honestly a genius.
How did you move from the bass technique to the other techniques that you use?
well, that came with time, and it's something I'm still working on actually. And because I started with that, this technique felt like more natural to me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I first started studying classical guitar, there were some lines where I had to do like one note per string stuff, like, and you can't really do that with this technique.
Yeah,
I mean,
string
you
crossing.
can do it, but it's not quite relaxed as the other technique.
I think it's cool how he mixes kind of having the bent wrist and the straight wrist. So this is like more old school technique that you have like Segovia, Julian Bream, all the old players play with the bent wrist like this, with kind of the mindset of it's easier to ascend and descend the strings like this, like a bass player would, especially when you play scales and things like that. It's not as convenient though when you have, like he's saying, one note per string, because then you have this. To do the string crossing. So if you have a straight wrist like this, which is a little more kind of new school, right? You don't have to do that all awkward string crossing. So it's cool that he kind of combines both ways of playing.
Then you're using the thumb to play to repeat the pattern over.
Yeah.
It's way more economical to do it like that.
Yeah, and I'm relaxed when I'm doing this. It's not like I'm, and you can play some complex line.
It's always a common pain point with classical guitar is right hand string crossing, right? And I think a lot of guitarists somewhat agree on this, that good guitar players, like it's in their right hand, like the money is in the right hand. Yes, left hand is super important and they have to work together, but like it's all in the right hand, and you got to find the right way that works to do it.
So you could never
so
do
good.
that fast with it.
It's so good. Yeah, that would be super hard with the pick. Like, I don't know, you have to do some sweeping or some weird alternate stuff to get that to happen.
Unless you're rabbit picking, or maybe you are changing the fingering a little bit to like two notes, and it really depends on the line actually. But
it's also crazy how like easy he makes that seem. Like that's so fast. He's like, it's nothing. It's incredible.
I concentrated a lot on this kind of lines, because I wanted to have a personal vocabulary also.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really cool at such a young age that he's so aware that he wanted to have his own like musical voice and musical vocabulary. I think that's super important, and I think a lot of times people can lose sight of that, even myself included. But that's cool that he was like aware of that from such a young age, that he wants his own sound,
So you can play lines like and with distortion it sounds more fun.
This is like, I feel like this clip is like iconic after this. It's like it's insane. It's too good. I love it.
Thanks, man.
Love that.
Could listen to that all day,
When I'm composing, I really like the process of being together and see what happens, and that's the beauty of playing with other people. And actually was the thing that I didn't like about the classical world, That's why I don't consider myself a classical player, because with classical guitar you play with too much time just alone with your score, and it wasn't fun to me. I really like.
Not gonna lie, that's true. That's true. You do spend a lot of time by yourself, kind of in your own little world. But we do have chamber music, and we do play with others quite often, actually. But majority can be, I don't know, solitude. So if you like being alone, classical guitar is the thing. But sometimes it's nice. I mean, I don't know. I like both. The thing I don't like about classical guitar is the sitting. I will tell you, I sit too much during the day on my butt practicing, and I don't like that. And I don't like being indoors all the time practicing. You know, I'm like, I want to be outside because I love the outdoors. Which, yeah, I could practice outside, but the acoustics aren't as good. You have distractions like people and whatnot.
And I really like to talk with the drummer, you know, in a way, talk with the bass player and interacting with each other.
Yeah, having dialogue with musicians is super important and something that's fun. I think, especially when you see live musicians, when you watch them play live, and like you said, like you see them talk to each other with a musical language, it's super enjoyable to hear and watch musicians do that. Does that mean when we play classical guitar solo, are we just talking to ourselves when we play?
Could we get you to play something?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Okay, final thoughts. I will say that I think it's a lot easier to play kind of fingerstyle on an electric guitar than it is on classical guitar. So that's one thing that's hugely different, because one, if you play on an electric guitar, it's like butter. Like you barely have to press with your left hand. The strings are closer together for your right hand. Life is good. Life is easy. And you have all the fun effects, which is great. I love that about electric guitar. I think the cool thing about classical guitar is that it's just this. It's just you. It's just raw. The tone you get is straight from you. It doesn't come from anything that's like an electronic source or like some other source, basically a sound source, you know? It's a little harder. The strings are further apart. You have to kind of, I think, work a little bit more for the sound, but it's cool. And one's not better than the other. They're just different, and that's the amazing part about music. So Matteo Mancuso, beast, freak, alien, but I love him. He's cool. And I can't wait to listen to more of his music. So thanks for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.